Welcome to episode 2 of the Creativity from Within podcast. Today's guest is Brian Burrell, police sergeant at a station in Westchester County. Our conversation today will be about defining blocks and assuring the audience that it's normal and it's okay to have some blocks. We'll also touch on the stress, the burnout, the fear that comes with the job of being a cop. And we'll go over strategies like taking a break, embracing rest, and all the positive things that you can do with high stress jobs to ease the tension. We will also discuss the power of routine, not taking work home with you, and simple ways that you could get rest and take care of your mental and physical well-being in a high-end job. And to close, we're going to talk about, we'll remind people that blocks are temporary and that it's okay. And what we have to remember, and what we've also sort of tied up and discussed, is that creativity, people might wonder, well, what does that have to do with creativity? Creativity is the ability to generate, develop, or express original and imaginative ideas. It involves thinking outside the box, making unique connections, and bringing something new into existence. It often blends inspiration, curiosity, and innovation to produce meaningful and impactful results. Today we're going to talk about overcoming idea blocks and providing actionable steps to push past these blocks. Our guest today is Brian Burrell, who works in law enforcement. You would be seeing more of me on camera and not so much him. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. I think you're the perfect fit for this topic because of what you do for a living. And that's why I invited you to do this. The question I have is, what do you do to understand the root cause of stress when it comes to your job? Like, what steps do you take to understand the stress that comes with the job and to minimize it?
So some steps that I've incorporated is definitely leaving the job at work, leaving the job at the job. I feel like learning the separation of both is very important. A lot of people tend not to do that. They try to bring the work home. They overthink. I believe that I incorporate exercise as well, mental and physical health, which um, they help balance both. So, with getting some time for myself, going to the gym, exercising, that takes me away from, you know, just the day to day of work. So I think that's a big part. Just learning how to, having some mental clarity to separate. I think that's important.
Okay, and with the nature of your job, if it's okay for me to ask this question, does the job provide like training to staff, or like, send people on workshops or have seminars where workers could learn how to deal with stress while on the job?
I don't think it's a common practice. I know that they do practice when there is a traumatic incident or a traumatic job, or you go under a very stressful situation. They do offer it at that point in time, but on a regular day to day, they do offer some, you know, services, but I don't believe it's enough. It's more pushed when you go under a stressful situation. So I believe it's something that is important because what I believe people don't understand is that regardless of what we're going through at home, personal, we still have to come and we still have to perform as if that is the only thing in the world. So with that, the stress level for everyone is going to be elevated in different ways, but for different reasons. Um, so I think it should be something that should be pushed more, but the level of what they offer now, I don't believe it's enough um, to suffice for the quality of work and the amount of work that we do.
Interesting. And what actionable strategies do you personally have in terms of keeping your self-centered and grounded on a professional and personal level? Like, what exercises? I don't necessarily mean the gym. I mean, what exercises do you do on a personal level? Like, do you read a lot of books? Do you meditate? Do you go for, do you travel? Do you take hikes? What ways and inspiration techniques do you use to keep yourself grounded?
So I incorporate a few different things. And whether it's, talking to people that has a similar career, um, preferably people that are retired, because what they experienced um, during their career is not necessarily what I'm experiencing. There are some similarities, but you know, times change, people change, the laws change. So just getting some background on how they uh, handled situations, um, and not even only retired, just more mature in the career, um, in law enforcement, as far as time on the job, speaking to them, getting insight, getting their input, their opinion. Um, I also watch a lot of current events, as far as like they have some different podcasts going on. I watch a lot of those to kind of clear my head to see what's going on in the world. Um, Reading does help. Meditating does help as well. And my uh, meditation is actually in the car, because a lot of times we don't realize at work I spend a lot of time in the car. Um, and it's really not, even if I'm driving by myself, it's really not by myself because I have to pay a lot of attention to my surroundings, what's going on the radio. So when I'm in the vehicle, my personal vehicle, traveling back and forth wherever, um, music does help. um, and just sometimes just going for a drive, just seeing different scenery where I'm not having to pay attention and look around and watch my back, that type of thing. So I think that's helpful, um, in sense to that.
And what advice would you give to like a young person, let's say coming out of college or even high school, and they decide, I want to be a cop, I want to try this, and they do get into the training. What advice can you give a young person about achieving their goals, staying focused, and not being intimidated by the choice that they made and going forward in it under supervision from people who have been there before, but at the same time not losing a sense of self, not losing who they are? I know, and I'm not judging here, but I know that a lot of times when young people get into certain careers, it can like inflate their egos. And some people don't stay humble in some careers. So, what would you tell a young person about achieving their goals, but at the same time staying humble?
I would most likely tell someone trying to come into this career and or completed the training and starting off in this career. Um, I believe it would just be travel. Um, don't remain in a box because you'll lose yourself to the job. And also know why you want to be in law enforcement. I know a lot of people get into law enforcement for that gratification of being able to tell people what to do or just for many different reasons, but you have to understand why you want to be in law enforcement, because it's a act of service job, so it's a very selfless job. So if you're looking for that pat on the back all the time every time you do something um, great in the community, if you're looking for, to be held up for, things that you do, sometimes it may not happen when you feel it should happen. So you have to do it with understanding that you're doing it for a purpose and it's sometimes bigger, and greater than self. Um, I would encourage, whether it's to start off, on your days off, you take a small road trip, you get to meet other people, um, and not to bring the job necessarily home with you, because when you do that, it's very hard to come back when you lose yourself into the work. It you bring a level of stress into your home that it's hard to shake sometimes. So you have to have balance and don't be stagnant. Work towards something else other than just being um, law enforcement. A lot of people, this is just the start and end of who they are. You have to also think of other ways, whether if it's incorporating law enforcement into something, a hobby or sports or something else, to where this is not it. Because one bad incident and that could be it for the career portion. So you have to find something else that you enjoy, that you do, and set a goal for it, as far as whether 5 years, 10 years after um, you're stable in that career, that you start working towards something else. I feel like that's very important as well. Um, so that's pretty much what I would tell them.
And you mentioned earlier not taking or bringing the job home with you. And the question I have, what do you do with your job? Like you get home and let's say family members call you or friends call you, where we think that because someone's in law enforcement, it's kind of okay to call them when they're not working to get advice or to, all these questions, like what would you do and what wouldn't you do? How do you set that boundary, you now in your life, because you're still in the field? How do you set that boundary with, let's say, family or friends?
So there's nothing wrong with giving brief advice, and because you are in a position where you see a lot of different things, and you could offer a level of understanding or some direction for in in different cases. So that's not an issue. But when you experience something at work, whether big or small, if it's too big, yes, you can speak about it. But for it to be a decompression method every day, it could be burdensome to family. And I find that a lot of family don't understand your day to day because they're not in that same position. So a lot of people may think you're just riding around in a car, just waiting for something to happen. And they don't understand that there's a lot of other um, things that go on throughout your day to day, whether it's having to just interact with the public. And the public isn't very friendly when it comes to law enforcement. It's not 20 years ago when we were more accepted, and it's a lot of anger towards us from things that go on around the country and the world. So we're not as received as a lot of people might think. So, you could be driving down the street and you wave to someone and they give you a finger. That breaks your spirit. It makes you feel like you're not doing something right. But it's not about that at the end of the day. So, you know, when you come home and you want to talk about stuff, family doesn't they don't necessarily understand that portion of the job. And not that they're insensitive, but they just would think that's not a big deal. But you have to think about the accumulation of that happening, or you pulling someone over and them cursing you out because they did something wrong, and you know n- you're the enforcer and the corrector of these things. So discretion is very big. We practice discretion, but a lot of people don't understand that portion of the job. So leaving a lot of that at work or amongst um, your colleagues at work is very important, because coming home or and discussing things that happen at work and not getting a positive response is also a stressor. So, that's what I mean by leaving and separating the job from home.
So you don't necessarily mean coming home and not giving advice to people that ask for it. You mean just leaving that part of it at the
Yes,
job, right?
absolutely.
That makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Giving advice, and not to cut you, is a great thing, and it's a pleasure to be able to give advice and know that what you're saying and what you're giving someone is accurate. And you are giving helpful advice, because a lot of people, you know, when they're asking for advice from law enforcement, it's something that is important to them or that they're going through, whether it's with a ticket or with someone that they're close to that's going through something. It's relatively an important or sensitive situation to that person. Um, so I feel like giving advice is I'm always, you know okay with offering advice, because I feel like not only am I educating you, I'm allowing you to understand the process of why things are done in a certain manner when interacting with law enforcement or going through the court system. It's a level of understanding that I'm trying to also provide.
Good. Thanks for that insight. And to wrap things up, can you just tell us a little bit about what do you think the importance of is of establishing a consistent practice and having a morning or evening habits that can help people to stay grounded and focused in a high stress job?
I believe having a routine is important, but also being able to be diverse in that routine, because the word routine in itself just means repetitive, to a lot of people. And I feel like just little changes are important, whether it's what you eat, whether it's just remembering to have breakfast, and is a routine in itself. But remembering to change up what you eat is the difference in that routine, and I think that's important. So what I typically try to practice is, as simple as it is getting rest, getting enough sleep. I try to practice that, and it doesn't always happen, but I try to get a certain hours of sleep, um, just so I could reset and get a clear mind for when I start my day again, because I work overnights. So my day starts typically when everyone's going to bed. So my day starts at 11 p.m. and it ends at 7 a.m. So for me, while everyone's getting up and getting their day started, I'm getting ready to wind down and head into bed. Another routine that I have sounds very simple, but it's very important that people practice these habits on a day to day as well. Is taking different routes to go home or to go to work. That it gets your brain thinking, not in a one uh, dimensional portion, because believe it or not, when people are going in a direction that is familiar, they only think it's like a block. They only think of that one way. And if there's any kind of distraction in that direction, they get a mental block, and it kind of makes them nervous, and put them in a space where they don't know what to do next. And I experienced that myself. So I try to switch that routine of the direction that I travel home. I try to change that. I try to switch the times that, for me personally, what I do, like I say, working out, that's a game changer for me. I don't only just do it to try to stay healthy. I do it because my train of thought is that you have people out there that have nothing but free time, and all they do is work out, and their intentions are to hurt me if they come in contact with me. And it's not me personally, it's the uniform. They just don't like the uniform. That's what it is. So for me,
Yeah.
just having those small, even though they may seem not important to other people, they're important to me because it allows my brain to work in a different caliber, to where I could think a little quicker when if there's traffic on when I'm going home, I know I could get off here and I could make it around and get home in the same amount of time that it would take me if I was going the shorter route. So it just allows my brain to, just think a little faster. Um, Reading is important. Um, and I get into the habit, not to go off topic, but I get into the habit of not watching the news, because a lot of the times what's going on in the community, you don't hear it on the news. I see it firsthand, and I know that it doesn't make it to the news because it's not something that sells. So I try not to uh, get into the habit of watching the news. I, I do a lot more on social media because for some reason, sometimes it's a little more up to date and a faster um, base. But those are things that I have done for myself, um to help me cope.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time and for going out of your way to taking a few minutes to help people overcome idea blocks. And the takeaway I got from this was use a different route to go home, which is what my dad always used to tell us growing up in Trinidad. Don't ever go, try not to go the same place. Don't get too engrossed in the news. Work out, mental health is important. So I got a lot from this, and I'm sure that the audience will as well. Thank you so, so much. And my prayer for you and for law enforcement is that you guys are protected and served with the same measure that you protect and serve others. On that note, God bless, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.
Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye bye.